You're listening to the Sustainable Angler Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Crawford. In this episode, I interview American Fly Fishing Trade Association CEO Ben Bulis, Conservation Director Regan Nelson, and Communications and Membership Director Matt Smythe. And we talk about everything from the history of AFFTA, AFFTA's policy work and conservation initiatives, and cover everything that's going to be happening at IFTD, and especially AFFTA's partnership with Costa and creating a Kick Plastic Coalition, where IFTD will be single-use plastic free. Thanks for listening and hope you enjoy. This episode of The Sustainable Angler is brought to you by Emerger Strategies, a sustainable business consultancy that improves the social, environmental, and economic bottom line of your operations and products. Profit sustainably. Got the folks over here from AFFTA on the Sustainable Angler today. We are, I guess, a couple weeks out from IFTD, which is exciting, and really wanted to kind of get the conversation started. There may be some listeners out there that are somewhat unfamiliar with AFFTA and what y'all do. And just wanted to go ahead and get it kicked off with, if Ben, you could just tell us a little bit more about AFFTA's mission and just tell us what you're all about.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Rick. Thanks for having us. So AFFTA is a group of fly shops, manufacturers, guides, outfitters, travel companies, sales representatives, and media in the fly fishing industry. So we are industry focused and not consumer focused, even though, our efforts that we work on within the industry definitely benefit the end consumer. And as the industry trade association, we're committed to serving our members and promoting the growth of the industry, the sustainability, I guess, business sustainability of the individual businesses, and the industry as a whole. The success of our industry as a whole is directly tied to the sustainability of resources of our sport, and we are the collective voice to help protect the resources of our industry and their businesses. So whether if that's creating educational events around the country for our retailers and sales reps to attend, and our industry as a whole to attend through the dealer summit, or that's talking to members of Congress on clean water and tax and trade and tariffs, it's all encompassing.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point, Ben, because there's at least from my viewpoint, it's kind of like you need the industry to lead, right? To take a leadership example or to play a leadership role. And as an AFFTA member, looking in, I think AFFTA does a great job with that in terms of different policy initiatives as it relates to conservation and sustainability, to informing, even though they're outside of the industry, as just a fly angler, they're looking to these companies to take those initiatives and help. Everybody wants to pitch in and help make an impact, and I think AFFTA is a good vehicle for that, and does a great job of letting the industry have a voice. So kudos to y'all. We certainly all appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and to add on to that, I would say that, AFFTA as an organization is only as strong as the members that we represent. And if whatever that we can do as an organization to make those members' businesses stronger, the industry as a whole benefits from that.
Yep. Yep. Couldn't agree more there. And Ben, this is kind of just something I'm somewhat curious about, but how did AFFTA get started? I mean, how long has AFFTA been around? I mean, how did all this come to fruition, I guess?
So AFFTA was part of a larger organization back in I think it was the late 80s, early 90s, called AFFTA. And that was the American Fishing Tackle Manufacturers Association. And it was an organization that represented both the interests of sport fishing as a whole in general, not just fly fishing and not just what some people like to say conventional or spin fishing. So out of AFFTA came two organizations, the American Sport Fishing Association and the American Fly Fishing Trade Association. So the original board of AFFTA had representatives from both the sport fishing conventional side of it and the fly fishing side. And a lot of the members of the fly fishing sides thought that they needed to have their own voice. And so hence came to AFFTA.
Cool. I actually was not aware of that. So interesting.
Yeah. A lot of people aren't.
Yeah. All right. So AFFTA now represents the fly fishing industry, and we have a voice. And I know one of the important things that AFFTA does to unite the industry's voice is focusing on a lot of important conservation initiatives as it relates to policy and fisheries. So, we know that things like climate change, plastic pollution, overfishing from population, we know that these are environmental threats to our fisheries, but AFFTA has focused on some, I would say, key initiatives as it relates to our industry and fisheries, and just wondered if maybe Regan, you could touch on some of the initiatives that y'all are currently or have been working on recently, and just go from there.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Actually, what I'd like to start off by talking about is the Day for Bristol Bay, which AFFTA most recently spearheaded. And I'd actually like Matt to talk about that because he played a really key role in making that a really successful day. So Matt, you want to start us off?
Sure. So this past August 24th, we, as an industry, we hosted what was called a Day for Bristol Bay. And it was the culmination of a couple of months of pretty intense legwork trying to get the word out about the need for our industry to pull together with one voice in a very, very deliberate and a very sort of, I guess, concrete way. Something that we haven't really done before. Traditionally or historically, the fly fishing industry, we've done a lot for, almost 15 years. We've done a lot to support the fight against pebble mine up in the headwaters of Bristol Bay. And I'm sure, your listeners, many of them, or hopefully all of them, know about what's going on up there, but there's proposed open pit gold, copper, and molybdenum. I'm going to mess that pronunciation up, but at any rate, it would be the largest open pit mine in North America, and it is threatening the headwaters of the largest sockeye salmon run in, I think it's the world, I believe. So at any rate, what's happening is we've been fighting against that going in there for almost 15 years, and we've been sending, it's millions of signatures and letters and things like that to Congress and to the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers to say, no, we can't do this. It's short-sighted. There's already a sustainable fishery, sustainable economy. And it's the basis of a lot of, the native culture up there too. And we've been fighting against pebble mine for this long. So rather than sending more signatures and more letters, we decided we were going to get behind the Bristol Bay Defense Fund, and that's a group that's on the front lines that are working on the Hill to fight against this mine. And we decided to get behind them from a financial standpoint by rallying the industry to raise as much money as possible to support their efforts. So after a couple of months of raising awareness, trying to rally the industry as a whole, as well as the fly fishing community, on August 24th, this past August 24th, everybody came together shopping at local fly shops, participating fly shops. And I think we had just over 30, I think we had 30 or 31 states that were represented by specialty retail fly shops. Coast to coast, everybody came together, and we wound up raising in excess of $100,000 for this group. The money, as awesome, absolutely amazing, and as big a statement as that was to be able to support the Bristol Bay Defense Fund, as big as that story is, the bigger story is the fact that we as a nation, coast to coast, we made a statement that will absolutely be heard in Congress because we're getting behind these folks. And they're going to see that, this isn't something that they should be so cavalier as to bypass the appropriate processes and what have you, and fast tracking, the permitting process and what have you. They need to do the due diligence, which is what we want them to do. Ultimately, we want them to just negate the permitting process and say, this is just a bad idea, wrong mine, wrong place. So that was that's one of the initiatives that we just took part in.
Yeah. And that was awesome. And again, I mean, this kind of goes back to, as an AFFTA member, but also even if I wasn't, just having all of the brands and AFFTA members also help spread that message. I mean, it just had what had to have been huge ripple effects in terms of reaching people who, maybe they're new to fly fishing and they aren't aware of what's happening at Pebble Mine. And obviously a huge success and having $100,000 donated, it sounds like, to the Bristol Bay Defense Fund, which they'll use to hopefully defeat Pebble Mine, and we can keep that fishery wild and that economy there can continue to thrive. So that's amazing.
Yeah, Rick, hey, this is Ben. I would add just one more thing onto what Matt had said, and it's not just obviously protecting the resources is what we want to do, but the reason for that is the economic impact of that fishery. There are about 17,000 jobs in the sport fishing world in that Bristol Bay region. And it's about a $1.5 billion economic impact. And that's every year, and that's sustainable. And that's just because of the abundance of the run of salmon that come back. And a lot of people don't realize if you haven't been there, it's not just about the salmon. It's about the entire wildlife ecosystem there, from, bird watchers to hunters and it's the fishermen. And it's not just salmon. It's everything that survives in those watersheds in those areas. So it's a fantastic trout fishery. And it's one thing that I think always has to be mentioned. It's not just about the salmon.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely right. And $1.5 billion impact there is, that would cripple that community and that economy, which would be a real shame for something that is sustainable for them in terms of having annual runs. And so yeah, that's a really good point, and always good point to make in terms of with any of the stuff. It's not just about for selfish reasons that I want to go out and catch salmon or trout indefinitely. It's also about the economic impact and also the ecosystem impact that removing a species can have.
And it affects the global seafood supply chain as well. I mean, I'm in DC this weekend. I was at Whole Foods yesterday, and right in the fish part of the store, excuse me, there was wild caught Bristol Bay Alaskan salmon, and they are highlighting the fact that it is wild caught and where it comes from. So it's I was in Jackson Hole last weekend too, and there was a and the whole grocer in Jackson Hole, which I'm sure you're well aware of, Rick. I mean, they had the same sign in there, wild caught Alaskan Bristol Bay salmon.
We have the same thing with Wegmans here. They market the same. And they get their salmon from there too.
And I mean, and as it should be. I mean, that's something that if people don't know the difference, you got to know what you're buying. And I think that is kind of a separate conversation. But the consumers, whether it's seafood or just about anything, with the amount of information that's available, are becoming increasingly educated. And I know that when I buy salmon, any seafood, I want to try and buy local, but also if I'm going to buy salmon, it's definitely going to be wild caught. So that's it's just good to know that what you're eating is supporting an economy and also is sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So Pebble Mine, huge success for the day for Pebble Mine. What other conservation?
The day for Bristol Bay. We weren't for Pebble Mine.
Against Pebble Mine.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. What other conservation initiatives is AFFTA sort of focusing on these days?
Yeah. Well, my job as conservation director is really to keep an eye on the legislative and regulatory proposals coming out of Congress and the Trump administration, and to make sure that we're weighing in with policymakers when those proposals could impact our industry. So what's on my plate these days? A big initiative over the last couple of years is to focus on marine fisheries management. So Congress actually is currently looking to reauthorize the Magnuson-Stevens Act. And this is essentially the primary law that governs how our marine federal fisheries are managed in the United States and in all of our territories as well, out in the Pacific and in the Caribbean. So if you think about it, we have nearly 500 different fisheries that are controlled by this one law, everything from salmon on the West Coast, bluefish, tuna species, mackerel species, sailfish, and others on the East Coast and in the Gulf of Mexico. So it's really a far-reaching law. And it's been a very successful law over the last 20 or 30 years. It's done a great job of really rebuilding a lot of fisheries that had been decimated by overfishing in the 80s and 90s. Within the fly fishing industry, saltwater fly fishing is actually the fastest growing segment of our industry, which is really exciting. It's attracting a lot of new interest in the sport, which is great. So we are really keen to make sure that when Congress updates this law, which they're currently in the process of doing, that they do it in a way that's going to benefit our industry. From our perspective, from AFFTA's perspective, we really believe that managing our fisheries to be abundant, so we have, not just sustainable, but thriving marine fisheries, is only going to just increase the opportunity for our guides and our consumers to be more successful on the water. And, the more success and opportunity we have on the water, the more likely we are to continue to grow the sport, and that's going to benefit our industry. We have to be really careful because there are voices out there that are looking simply to maximize harvest or essentially removal of fish from fisheries populations. And if that happens, we're going to see reduced fishing opportunities on the water, which is exactly what we don't want to see for our industry. So there's a really important advocacy role for AFFTA in this conversation. And so we've been very much engaged in that conversation. and working with the policymakers who are leading that effort.
Yeah, and something else too in term, because Magnuson Stevens has been so successful in the past in rebuilding fish stocks and fisheries, I don't know how it's just not common sense. It's like it's the tragedy of the commons, right? You have a growing population, and to do anything to your point, Regan, is to say, no, I don't want just a sustainable fishery. I want a thriving fishery, and I want our kids and grandkids to be able to not only experience it from an angling perspective, but also, being able to enjoy seafood. I don't understand how that's even. Are they considering, I guess what I'm asking is, are they even considering the growing population in the context of this conversation?
In any natural resource management context, there is always a tension between short-term gain and long-term sustainability. I mean, that's just always been the case. And, we're fortunate in the fly fishing industry that we have a very deep-seated conservation ethos among our industry members and our anglers. And so for us, it makes perfect sense, that we would be making the decisions today that are going to assure that we have, thriving populations into the future. But, that's not always the case. There are people out there that are looking, to maximize how many fish can we take out of the ocean now, because, that's going to help me sell more stuff today and tomorrow be damned. So That's always just it's a real tension that exists. And that's why it's incredibly important for conservation advocates to make their voice heard in the conversation. Otherwise, we're just going to get rolled.
Yep. Interesting. So in terms of MSA reauthorization, what does a timeline on that look like?
Yeah. Well, the House committee that has jurisdiction over this bill is in the process of hosting listening sessions around the country. They're very interested in hearing from all stakeholders about what the priorities are for a reauthorized law. So AFFTA is very engaged in that process. We're actually in the process right now of working with sort of a cross spectrum of our members to put together a list of priorities and sort of the scientific rationale behind those priorities. We think it's important for the new law to pay attention to the impacts of climate change on our fisheries. We think it's important to pay closer attention on the quality of habitats and how we're managing our habitats, to pay closer attention on, the issues that could drive overfishing, for example. So we've got a number of things that we're taking a look at. Open ocean aquaculture is another one. So we're taking a look at all of those issues, and we're putting together some policy recommendations that we're going to be sharing with the committee. I expect we could see a draft bill out next year.
Wow, cool. So everyone can be on the lookout for that from AFFTA. And what about, what if I'm a listener and I'd like to somehow get involved? Are these listening sessions going to be probably the best way to do that? Or do you have a recommendation there?
Yeah, that's a great way to get engaged. I would say if you're interested in learning more about the Magnuson-Stevens Act and being engaged, get in touch with me. I'd be happy to tell you what's going on. There's lots of opportunities to engage, not only with Congress and your policymakers, but also in your communities. I mean, it really comes down to there needs to be a movement of anglers who are willing to, get in touch with their policymakers and say, hey, conservation is important. So the more people we have willing to step up and make their views known, the more success we're going to be able to have. So, watch our website for opportunities to engage. We often send out action alerts or notices when there's something to do. But I'm always just a phone call away if anybody wants to talk. Nice.
Well, appreciate that. So are there anything, I mean, y'all do a lot with conservation. That's one of the things that I've always, since I've been involved with AFFTA, have enjoyed is getting those action alerts, and there's a lot of opportunities to make your voice heard. Is there any other initiatives that y'all like to mention, or anything else you have on the cooker?
I think one issue, and I know that we kind of want to focus on success stories a lot of the times, but we did just have a big loss, and that is with regard to the rollback of the Clean Water Rule by the Trump administration. A bunch of our conservation allies, as well as AFFTA, were really adamantly opposed to the Trump administration rolling back this rule. But it happened about 2 weeks ago. They went ahead and finalized that rule, which essentially strips protection from many of our headwater streams and wetlands, and sort of opens the door to oil and gas development and mining and other things that we know can really impact those water bodies. So, that's a big loss. And as we move forward, we're gonna be working closely with our conservation allies to see what we can do to continue to fight that and the effects of that rule change. So that's another one that we're keeping our eye on.
Cool. Yeah. And I'll be interested if there's anything we can do on our end to help with that, please let us know. I'm sure everyone involved with AFFTA would love to get involved with that, because, I think the way that they're sort of playing this is that, hey, this will help farmers. And at the end of the day, really what it's doing is it's just allowing oil and gas and mining to pollute headwaters is basically what it means, from my understanding of it. But
yeah.
All right. So let me ask y'all this. So I'll just mention this just in case someone doesn't know, but all this will be in the show notes and all that kind of stuff. But if someone wants to get involved and get these action alerts, they can just go to AFFTA.org, I guess, and sign up for a newsletter, or how can someone be alerted about this stuff?
Yeah. On AFFTA.org, you can submit your email to get on our mailing list.
Okay.
It should be right there. I don't know if it's on. Let me see if it's on the homepage. I believe it's a little slow going here. Yeah, on the homepage, it's AFFTA on the fly. If you scroll down, you can give your submit your email, and you'll be added to our mailing list.
Cool.
Hey, Rick, I think this is Ben. I think you mentioned something that's really important there that I can't let go by without commenting on, and that's being involved and engaged and participating. We are passionate about what we do because we've seen the direct impact of our work to our members. So for anybody who works in the business of fly fishing, you should be involved with your trade association. It's really easy to sit on the sidelines and say that, we've all heard it, where people are very skeptical or throw bombs at, lack of a better word, throw bombs at organizations that they maybe not know about or criticize because they don't know about what they do. But I can tell you right now that our board of directors are a completely volunteer board. It's 15 people, and it's an active working board, and they represent every aspect of the industry. And so you always, as a member of the business of fly fishing, you have a representative on the board and a voice on the board. So, you don't like something that's going on, in the industry. I would encourage you to become involved and be active within your trade association. We do this for a reason, and we do this to make sure that our industry as a whole is represented.
Yeah. And I mean, just to add to that, I mean, it also helps to know that, your voice and your opinion is being heard, and that the AFFTA board, I think, and the organization, from my experience, has been very, open to hear anyone out, and also helps to facilitate a community of, I think, business owners and members of this industry that care about the resource and want to protect it. So, and like I said earlier, I think, AFFTA is sort of the vehicle to do that at scale.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, the community aspect of that, we'll see it if in full effect here in Denver in a couple of weeks.
All right. So you mentioned Denver. That's probably a good segue. I know you'll have some other conservation initiatives, but this is probably a good segue for IFTD. So International Fly Tackle Dealer Show. That's right. IFTD.
Yep, that's correct.
So over the last few years, has been married with sort of ICAST in Orlando, and this was before my time in the industry, but I guess before that it had been held in Denver. So it's coming back to Denver, and would love to just get your take on what's happening there, what's exciting, what can attendees expect, and just all that good stuff there.
Yeah. So as you said, the American Fly Fishing Trade Association, which owns the International Fly Tackle Dealer Show, has been co-located with ICAST since 2013. That first year in 2013, we were in Las Vegas, and then moved the show 2014 through 2018 in Orlando, Florida. And the late portions of the year of 2016, we sent out a survey to our member segments of our membership and asked them for their opinion. And again, this goes back to my earlier point, of making sure that we're involved and engaged in listening to our membership. So we surveyed our members, asked them, two questions. Do you want to stay in Orlando for the future, or would you like to come back or go to Denver? Come back to Denver, I guess, the homecoming to Denver in October. And the overwhelming response, I have the numbers in front of me, but it was close to, I think it was like 82.3% of respondents said that they wanted to come back to Denver, have a standalone show to celebrate the industry, and have it be hosted in October. So here we are. I mean, we're over 3 years in planning now, Rick, for what's going to happen in almost 3 weeks, just less than 3 weeks. And there's been a tremendous amount of work, planning involved with this. It's a lot of people don't understand the amount of planning that has to go into changing a venue or identifying a venue, making sure that the location is available. It's about 3 years. And so in a couple of weeks, we'll see the fruits of our labor. And one thing I have to mention again is that, I said earlier, is our board is a working board. We have a show committee and dealer summit committee that meets at least once a month. And it is chaired by not a board member, but a member of the association. His name is Steve Benzak. A lot of people know who he is, but he has been dedicated volunteer to running this show committee, and the amount of work and hours that he has put in a volunteer, it has to be mentioned that we wouldn't be where we are now without Steve running this show committee. And so, IFTD is going to be a celebration of our industry. I sometimes call it a family reunion, and sometimes, family reunions are dysfunctional. And the interesting thing about our industry is that it is small, and it is that community that sales reps have worked for other companies, have worked with other sales reps, have worked, I don't want to say against, but other companies in selling product for the manufacturers across the country. And you see a lot of crossover within the brands. People work for one company for a while, and then they move over to another company. But it's a celebration of our industry. And it culminates in our new product showcase awards announcement, which happens at the Party at the Pond on Thursday night. And to be able to stand on that stage and to present those awards to people that have, put the blood, sweat, and tears of years of product development and, tweaks to their products, and they get chosen by their peers to win an award, it's very powerful. And you can see it. You can see it front and center when you're there. You can see it on the face of the people when they win an award and they come up and receive their awards. And it's probably one of the most gratifying 45 minutes of definitely of the show, but probably the year that I experience when I see and a lot of the times it's the designers of these companies or the designers of this product that come up and accept this award. And then, I see it across the country when I go and travel to these manufacturers. And if you walk in and you see a manufacturer that has won a new product showcase award, that award is prominently placed at that business. And it just goes to show the relevance of what we do at AFFTA and IFTD. When you see that, and IFTD it's not just about the show, and it's not just about awards, and it's not just about recognition. It's about educational events for not just retailers, but for sales reps and manufacturers as well. We have a great lineup this year of educational events at the show, and we're going to be even more inclusive than we have in the past. We have an open air seminar area, which is down by the registration desk. And so everybody that comes in and walks in and registers or has registered and picks up their badges, they're going to see that educational area front and center. And there's events going on pretty much every hour on the hour through the show. And, we've worked really hard to make sure that we have, prominent or relevant, I should say, seminar discussions. I know that, Rick, you're going to be doing one. And so, like I said, again, it's the celebration of the industry, but it's more, it goes down to, it digs down more than that. It is about the bedrock of our industry and how we come together and how we, as an industry as a whole, make sure that we're bettering ourselves for the future.
Yeah. And I'll just go ahead and take this as an opportunity to shamelessly self-plug. Oh,
that's not shameless. I opened the door for you.
If you're in attendance, there are a ton of good educational seminars, but my recommendation would be to attend the Sustainable Business Seminar on Wednesday, the 16th from 4 to 5. I've got some great panelists. I've got Corinne Doctor from Rep Your Water, Dr. Andy Danilchuk from UMass Amherst, Steve Hemchek from Orvis, and Oliver White from Abaco and Bears Lodge. So if you can attend, please do, in addition to all the other great educational seminars. But speaking of sort of the sustainability side of this, which got me really excited and was just really stoked to see the industry decide to kick plastic at this show. And that's definitely, and it sounds like there's a Kick Plastic coalition with multiple brands in the industry, and would just love to hear more about that initiative and what attendees can expect. And just take it away there.
Yeah. So I think the prominent features that attendees would recognize and at the show are going to be when you come up and grab your badge. We partnered with Costa, and we have every attendee. Well, I should say, let me rephrase that. The first 2,000 attendees who come to the show will get a aluminum water bottle. so that they don't have to walk around, purchasing water bottles, single-use plastic water bottles. And this has been an initiative that we have been a part of for quite some time with Costa. I mean, panels at past shows where I sat on and discussed the importance of single-use plastic or elimination of single-use plastic at our events and to benefit our resources. But the other things that people probably won't notice are the fact that, all of our signs, everything that we produce at this show, in the past, it had been on either PVC or some type of vinyl or plastic, and that's not going to be the case this year. We, working with our partner, who's the exhibit service company, Freeman, who, again, probably a lot of people don't know about, but they're the behind the scenes partner and that we hire to help us put this show on. And Freeman is 100% committed to being an environmental steward here. There was no difference in costs for us to do this.
Wow.
So all of our signs are going to be on EcoBoard. So whether if it's already been recycled or will be recycled after the show, any place that we had in the past done vinyl signage, it's all going to be on fabric and also printed with soy-based inks. And then those fabrics are reusable. So we have crates that we as AFFTA and IFTD utilize some of our services or our needs every year. They stay at the location. So, we have crates that'll stay in Denver after this show, and they'll be there next year, and we'll be able to reuse a lot of the products and signage that we use this year. One thing that we definitely made strides at producing was, sometimes you see at shows, it'll have dates on it, like IFTD 2019. Well, we didn't brand anything IFTD 2019 so that we can reuse it. We've worked with the Denver Convention Center is a gold certified LEED or gold LEED certified. And that is not just, from the facility, but it also trickles down throughout the vendors within the facility. So Centerplate is our contact for food and beverage. And we've had multiple discussions about this. They know where we're going with this. And so there'll be no single-use plastic at any vendor, any food vendor, at any event that we have food and beverage at. We've also not allowed any vendor or any exhibitor within the convention center to be able to, like if they have a happy hour in their booth and they have beers, well, all those which were plastic cups in the past are now all compostable. And so it goes beyond just the show organizers, us trying to produce an environmentally friendly show. But it went beyond that as far as, making sure that our vendors know about it and the opportunities that they have or the lack of opportunity that they will have, to get anything that is a single-use plastic. So cutlery, no straws, no mayonnaise packets, no relish packets, ketchup, mustard, things like that. All of the food outlets inside the convention center, no single-use plastic. So, our industry breakfast, all is going to be plated on China, and it's the right thing to do. And when we, as an organization, our conservation efforts and stewardship opportunities are preaching to people that they should be watching what they are doing. Well, we should lead by example. And so what other better place to lead by example than our industry gathering every year?
Yeah, no. And I absolutely love that. And a couple of things that you mentioned, and, I hear this, from my customers, but you pointed this out, is that I think a lot of people are unaware of the fact that you don't have to sacrifice quality or pay more for a sustainable option now because it's in such demand that it's competitively priced with anything. So you're not having to sacrifice on, hey, great, I'm going to have an inferior product or whatever. The quality is the same. The price is competitive, if not the same, and it's better for the environment. So that's a huge point. But another point, well, first off, heck yeah, this is awesome. Freaking love this. And I think there might be some folks listening to understand where it's not just saying, hey, we're getting rid of single-use plastics and we're reusing materials. There's a reason for that, and the reason for that is that and I don't have all of the stats directly in front of me, but basically the long and the short of it is we are producing an insane amount of single-use plastic, and we're at a point now in the life of the planet with our population and the amount of plastic that we're producing that it is starting to enter our food chain through what we eat, including our fish, which is pretty scary.
Yeah, that's right, Rick. If you don't mind, I'll jump in here because it really is a scary story. There's a study out now that says that if we continue producing plastics and essentially not disposing of them properly, by 2050, we're going to have more pounds of plastic in the ocean than we're going to have pounds of fish. So if that's not disgusting, I don't know what is. You mentioned that those plastics are now entering into the food chain, and that's absolutely right. I mean, we've seen pictures of seabirds and whales that die because of the large amounts of plastics that are in their belly that cause them to starve to death. But more and more scientists are now finding out that fish are ingesting microplastics. And the problem here is that these microplastics can act as sort of the medium to transfer toxins like heavy metals and other disgusting things into the fish's flesh. And then that's, of course, what we eat, or that's what bigger game fish eat that we subsequently eat. So the plastic pollution in the ocean can not only poison the ocean, it can poison us if we're not careful. I think a lot of people tend to think about plastics as being an issue in the oceans, but it's not limited to just the oceans. They're an issue in freshwater as well. There's actually a really compelling study that was done here in Montana. I'm sure many of your listeners are aware of the Gallatin River. It's one of our famous blue ribbon streams here in Montana. It's got a great trout fishery, and its headwaters are formed up, within and outside of Yellowstone National Park. And so we're talking about, some of the most protected areas on Earth, really. And over the last 2 years, there's been scientists out taking water samples throughout the Gallatin watershed. And they've found in 57% of those samples, there were microplastics present. So This is not just an issue in the oceans, it's an issue in our freshwater sources as well. So it's a huge problem. It's not one that matters only in coastal states. It matters just as much for us to be mindful of our plastic in Denver as it does in the Keys. So I'm really, really proud of AFFTA for making this statement. I'm not aware of any other show that's gone to the links that we have to make this statement. So it's compelling, and hopefully it will, be the first of many such efforts to follow course.
Yeah, and to your point, in addition to that, a lot of people who maybe they've attended some trade shows, or it doesn't matter what industry you're in, but a point that I'd like to make, and I don't have statistics on this, but I've read about it. And trade shows produce a tremendous amount of waste, because it's everything from booths to signs to carpet to, just, you wouldn't believe the amount of waste that a trade show can generate. In addition to, just consider, let's say that there's 3,000 people that attend IFTD this year. And if there were plastic water bottles available, how many water bottles would there be? They may be recycled, but the truth is a lot of that ends up in the landfill. And so, another point to make is that not only is this the right thing to do, and certainly makes me proud as an AFFTA member that y'all are doing this, but it's also keeping a lot of waste out of the landfill. And so my hat's off to you. I'm excited to check it all out, and hopefully get in there early and get an extra water bottle while I'm at it. So,
well, speaking of which, I think it's important to recognize again, our partnership with Costa, as well as this coalition that we've formed. I mean, it's Costa, it's Yeti, Sims, Yellow Dog, Captains for Clean Water, Rep Your Water, G. Loomis, and Sweetwater Brewing. There's a lot of people that are getting in on this, and part of the coalition, what we're doing is not only are we supplying people with a water bottle that they're going to be able to use throughout the day or throughout all 3 days, we're also supplying refilling stations that our coalition partners are going to be able to brand, and they're sort of the silos, the water silos that people they'll have in their booths. And so as attendees are moving around and what have you, they're going to be able to refill all over the floor, which is a really cool thing. And that's, to your point, it keeps those individual water bottles out of their hands. It keeps them out of the garbage. It keeps them out of the landfill. And it allows people the opportunity to really have more control over that. Likewise, we've got at the, Ben had mentioned a number of different spots where we're cutting out the single-use plastic or plastics as a whole. We're also, like at the party on the pond, Sweetwater, in addition to Thomas & Thomas, they're sponsoring that, and they're supplying all of they're supplying guide beer, and it's all in cans, and all the cans are going to be recycled. So no cups and kegs. It's going to be just straight out cans, and then we're collecting everything. So the recycling will be 100% on that. So we're really looking to make this as much like the party on the pond, like 100% recyclable event, but then also just keeping things out of landfill. Even the idea of there's not going to be any carpeting in the aisles. So we're decreasing the use of forklifts and thus the emissions that they put out with rolling out and carrying all these carpets. And we're also keeping thousands of yards of material out of the landfill that winds up getting used and then either not reused, or it gets worn out and it gets pitched. So there's a lot of ways that we're pushing the just to be much more sustainable, be much more mindful in our energy usage and what it is that we're putting into the landfill. And I really want to applaud our partners on this, because it's their efforts as well to help bring this to life. We can shout it and we can do certain things, but it really takes, it takes a community to come together to get it done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And, that's an important point too. And getting these brands involved, they each have their own reach, through social media and everything else to help promote this message and get that out to people who, there's a lot of people who are just simply unaware that this is a problem, which is, pretty wild. But another important point I think to make is that, little, if everyone made little steps, it'd make a huge impact. And this is a big step for the industry. So, my hat's off to y'all. When I saw that announcement, man, I got fired up about it. And I was just so glad to see that. All right. So, I guess not really shifting gears here, but I did want to, as I like to do in the show, to talk about some, some success stories, like maybe through the Fisheries Conservation Fund or anything that y'all'd like to share on that front. Because I'm in this world like day in and day out, and I read a tremendous amount about environmental threats, whether it be climate change and plastic pollution and just everything in between. And so I think it's also really important to highlight some good things that people are doing. Part of that is obviously what y'all are doing at IFTD with kicking plastic and being mindful of energy use. But is there any other success stories that y'all can think of that you care to share? And also Dave for Bristol Bay. But anything else that y'all like to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add just, one thing that will be a success. And so again, a community coming together. One of our members, Row Drift Boats, has donated a drift boat and trailer to the Fisheries Fund. And we will be we will be selling raffle tickets at IFTD for that. And
Nice.
It's again, the community that has come together around this. So Row donated the drift boat and the trailer. Yeti has donated a cooler for it. We've now got Sage that has come and donated rods and reels to it, and Rio lines, and a Rio flies, a selection of flies for that. And Sweetwater is going to be throwing some guide beers in there, cases of guide beer as well. But again, this is our community coming together, and this is a straight donation to the Fisheries Fund, and we'll be selling raffle tickets. They're going to be $20 for 10 raffle tickets. And on Thursday, we will be pulling the lucky winner out of the raffle ticket out of hopefully a very big jug or a big vessel that is full of raffle tickets, and all of the proceeds of that go to the Fisheries Fund. So, we're hoping to raise quite a bit of money, so then that we can then turn around and give that money away to organizations that have come to us for help on, fisheries conservation or education across the country.
Wow, that's awesome. Let me know when those raffle tickets are for sale. So
yeah, they'll be for sale. You'll see a bunch of people around the show floor walking with them. We'll take credit cards, preferably credit cards. Everyone's got credit cards, and not a lot of people carry cash anymore. So we'll be ready to sell you some raffle tickets.
Nice.
One thing I'd like to talk about is over the last year, AFFTA partnered with the Ocean Media Institute, which is a educational filmmaking nonprofit that focuses on the ocean and ocean conservation. That's actually based here in Bozeman, of all places. And we did a film. We did a 7-minute film called Tomorrow's Fish, and we essentially brought two AFFTA guides, John McMurray and Abby Schuster, together off the coast of New York and sent them out on a couple-day saltwater fly fishing adventure, and just interviewed them about the importance of conservation and the importance of getting engaged as an angler to protect the resources that we love. And we have a beautiful film. It's short, it's only 7 minutes, but we are going to be premiering that film in New York City. Orvis on 5th Avenue is hosting the showing on October 23rd. And we're going to have John and Abby there, and Matt's going to be there. And we're going to show the film and talk about the importance of getting engaged in conservation issues. And then once the film is premiered, we're going to package it with 2 other short films. One that was co-produced with our partners at Bonefish Tarpon and Trust, and focuses on habitat quality issues in Florida. And then a second one, which focuses on the Pebble Mine issue up in Bristol Bay. And we're going to have sort of a trio of films that we're going to make available to fly shops around the country, along with educational materials. So we're hoping that fly shops will be interested in hosting this package of films to put an event on in their store that brings people into their store and has them look around and maybe buy a couple things, but also gets them fired up about conservation. So we'll be rolling that out over the next few weeks. And we'll also be showing our film Tomorrow's Fish at IFTD, so people can have an early preview of it at the show.
Oh no, I love that. That's such a great concept and great reason to get into your local fly shop and support local business owners, and also promote conservation. So that sounds like that will be a home run, and definitely looking forward to seeing the film. Thanks for listening to the Sustainable Angler Podcast. Special thanks to Ben, Matt, and Regan from the American Fly Fishing Trade Association. For more info on AFFTA, visit www.affta.org. And for more episodes of The Sustainable Angler, we can be found anywhere you listen to your podcast: iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play Music. So don't forget to like and follow. That helps us out a lot. Thanks, and have a great day.